The years went by, and Sigmar grew yet more fearsome, his vision of a united, prosperous and mighty future for his people driving him on. In time, he grew to be the greatest warrior of the Unberogen, even before attaining his shield in battle. At the age of 15, Sigmar led a retaliatory raid upon a greenskin tribe in retribution for their prior attack on an Unberogen holding. The chieftain of these beasts was a mighty Black Orc warboss known as Vagraz Headstomper. For those who don't know what a Black Orc is, they are a bigger, meaner and smarter version of Orc that tends to end up in a leadership position, or at least in an elite unit of Orc armies that is a lot more cohesive than the rest of the army. They're quite superior in their attitude towards the rest of the Greenskins, but yeah, they're kind of the natural leaders of Greenskin society. We think they were created by the Chaos Dwarfs, who used to enslave Greenskin tribes to use as slave labour to build their ziggurats and stuff in honour of their god. And we think that they created the Black Orcs with dark magic and selective breeding to make them larger and stronger and smarter, so that they could use them as a ruling class to keep all the other Orcs in check, because they were having a lot of trouble maintaining order amongst the Greenskins, as they had so many of them. And Greenskins are usually too stupid to even threaten into some kind of order, because they can't fathom such things as consequences of their actions in the future and stuff like that. It's hard to tell an Orc that if you do that, I will hurt you, and them to fully understand that that is possible if you're in a position of power. But of course, this didn't really work, and the Black Orcs ended up organising a revolution. The great uprising that followed almost led to the complete destruction of the Chaos Dwarves' entire empire, making it as far as the doors of the Temple of Hashut, the god of the Chaos Dwarfs, the very dark heart of their empire. However, in their hour of triumph, only the timely betrayal of the hobgoblin allies of the Greenskin slaves spared the dwarfs from their complete and total annihilation. Although many of the slaves were put to the sword or dragged back to the slave pits, the Black Orcs were able to escape, and have since been accepted into normal Greenskin society. It is also thought that the Greenskins learnt metalworking from their time under the bondage of the Chaos Dwarfs, and since obviously the idea spread to the rest of the Greenskins once the slaves were released. And so it's not surprising that one of these beasts was the war boss of this troop of Orcs. By chance, they had made a prisoner of the then High King of the Dwarfs, Kurgan Ironbeard, as well as his kinsman, as they were en route to meet with the Stoneheart Dwarf clan of the south. They had been ambushed. The Unberogans cornered the Orcs, unwittingly coming to the rescue of the Dwarfs as well. This meeting would be a turning point in this man's history. In the battle that transpired, Kurgan Ironbeard bore witness to this young human prince facing down the Black Orc. Despite young Sigmar's mighty strength, every killing blow his bronze sword had made was turned aside by the armour of the Orc, and with every blow from its flaming axe, it came all too close to ending his young life. Ironbeard broke free of his bonds and fought his way to Vagraz's tent, where he kept his pick of the Dwarf High King's possessions, including the mighty hammer Ghal Maraz, the splitter of skulls. Kurgan threw the hammer towards Sigmar, cursing the Orcs with every curse known to dwarf kind. Sigmar caught the ancient weapon, and the tide turned for the Unberogen. Sigmar assaulted the Orc with mighty strikes of his hammer, the fury of his blows bringing the hulking beast down to a single knee. With the final strike, Sigmar smashed the Orc's skull into bloody shards. A mighty feat, even for a warrior wielding a weapon forged with dwarfen skill. With the close of the battle, their holdings avenged, Sigmar attempted to return the hammer to the High King. In that moment, a historical act came about, one unheard of in all the annals of both men and dwarves, and forever forged an unbreakable bond of friendship between the men of the lands west of the mountains and the dwarven kingdom of Karazenkor. King Kurgan Ironbeard gifted the ancient hammer Ghal Maraz to Sigmar. It was a unique happening for a unique weapon, for the power of Ghal Maraz is old, ancient even to the dwarfs, and it is said of the weapon that it itself possesses a will of its own, and it actively chooses those who are to bear it into battle. Indeed, as fate would have it, the hammer was always Sigmar's, and had been waiting for the day for the warrior to claim it. The dwarfen king looked upon Sigmar and saw within him power, honour, courage and nobility without parallel, and knew that Ghal Maraz was rightfully his, and he also reasoned that an ancient runic weapon was fitting payment for saving the life of a dwarfen king. From then on, the dwarfen nations and the Unberogen clans were the most steadfast of allies.
Mighty is Sigmar, who saves a dwarf king from dishonor. How can I reward him? A hammer of war, a hammer of iron, which fell from the sky with 2 tongues of fire. From the forge of the gods, worked by runesmiths, Ghal Maraz its name, the splitter of skulls.
At the start of his 15th year, Sigmar was now charged with earning his shield, an important rite of passage for the men of the ancient tribes, as this symbolized the progression into full manhood. Sigmar would now lead a true army of his fellow tribesmen into battle against the enemies of the Unberogen. For once again, the orcs of the mountains had laid waste to the holdings of men, this time led by a war boss known as Bone Crusher. Sigmar had long stared death in the eye and smiled back at it, but the challenge before him made him fear, for Sigmar now had the lives of his fellow men on his hands, and was in a position to be judged by his fellow warriors. He had led men in battle before, but none of such magnitude as this. His father saw these things and assured him, telling him it was the charge of men to face fear and overcome it, and that the same serpent had gnawed in his belly when Sigmar's grandfather, Redmane Dragor, had sent him out to earn his own shield. Bjorn had also told his son that he knew that his deeds would be a legend one day, and that men would speak his name in awed whispers long after his passing. Presenting his son a bronze-studded shield, Bjorn told him to either come back with it or upon it. Offering their blood sacrifices to Ulric, the Unberogans feasted and caroused, knowing that for many, tomorrow would be their final day. The Unberogen rode out to Astolfen and built a camp near the beleaguered town, sending scouts to learn of the enemy's position. They found out the Orcish army was 2,000 strong in all, and was led by a towering Orc warboss, clad in black armour with a massive war axe. This was Grimgut Bonecrusher, who with a mighty throw of his weapon towards the Astolfen gate, made the signal for his mob to begin the siege. Sigmar and his warriors then rode down to the slope of his hill. The warrior prince had cast aside all his armour to show his contempt for the orcs. He held a great iron spear in one hand, and with a single throw of it he impaled 2 orcs. The orcs were caught unprepared by the cavalry charge, and their lines were bent back and made to waver. However, every orc slain had another ready and eager to take his place, and for all the fury of the Unberogen charge, the orcish line held. Pendrag led a company of horse archers down the slope and met the orcs on the other flank, hammering into them with arrow after arrow. This time, however, the orcs reacted, and their crude shield wall broke to allow their warriors to chase the now retreating horsemen. Eventually the orcs began to retake their lost ground, and it was now that Sigmar revealed his true plan. With 2 blasts of a war horn as the signal, Sigmar's warriors broke from the battlefield back to the war camp, while another force of Unberogen warriors, serving as the army's rearguard, formed up at Astolfen Bridge and readied their axes to face the onrushing orc hordes. The Unberogans replaced their weapons and took up fresh remounts at the base, and then charged back to fight without second thought, knowing their time was being bought with the blood of friends and sword brothers. It was the noble Travantes who led the rearguard, fighting the orcs as if the spirit of Ulric filled him on that battlefield, the god of wolves, winter, and war. Many orcs did he and his brave warriors slay, until they fell in heaps about them, clogging the bridge with blood and flesh. However, the Unberogans were soon overwhelmed, and Travantes was slain in single combat with the war boss Bonecrusher. Sigmar, as he rode back out of Astafan in a thunder of hooves with his sword brothers, coming to relieve the rearguard, saw his lifelong friend clove in two by the axe of the orc war boss. Sigmar let loose a howl of terrible rage as he closed in with the orc, leaping from his saddle and swinging his hammer in a single devastating arc that obliterated the orc warlord's skull. With that, Sigmar and his warriors slaughtered the remaining orcs with vicious joy, roaring out brutal supplications to their god Ulric. On that day, Sigmar had defeated a foe many times his own number, and sent a trusted friend to his death, and filled his heart with burning hatred for the enemies of men. His shield earned, Sigmar and his warriors returned back to Reichdorf in glory. Thus did Sigmar return to the Unberogen capital of Reichdorf, which is modern-day Altdorf, draped in victory and glory, having broken a massive orc army of 2,000 strong and saved the village of Astafan from certain destruction. After interring the fallen, including brave Travantes, into the Warriors' Hill, the great tomb of the Unberogen, King Bjorn ordered a celebration of the victory. Unto his celebration came King Marbad of the Endels, a staunch ally to the Unberogen and sword brother of King Bjorn. In the company of these two kings did Sigmar recount the deeds and heroes of Astafan in his own vision of an empire of man. Of him, the Endel remarked that he was at the very least courageous. However, Sigmar's meteoric rise to glory caused him to make enemies within the Unberogen tribe, particularly the swordsman Geryon, the brother of Travantes, who harboured a great hatred for Sigmar for, in his mind, leading his brother to his death by ordering him to take that distraction at Astafan Bridge.